Yo, what's up, guys? Getting started here. There's a lesson. There's my boy, Zany SSB. Or Zany, I guess. Yeah. Joining me here, we have my boy, Zany. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm alright.
Alright, well, this man just dropped Tremendo donation for the stream. $40 donation. The alert's not coming up right now, but okay. Make sure. False. No, the alert is not coming. Damn it. Technical difficulties. Anyways, he left a $40 donation for a 2-hour lesson. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. Anyways, we spoke a bit before all this got started. You told me you're a Lucas main. You consider yourself to be a competitive player, intermediate level. You are PR'd in your region, right? What region is that?
Yes. It's Kentucky.
Okay.
Like Midwest.
West Kentucky, very nice. Raise the volume a little bit. Okay, so you said your goal overall, by the time you finish playing Smash, you want to be the best player in the world. That's a very lofty goal, but we'll see if we make it there. Follow your dreams. Your goals for this lesson are learning fundamentals and how to adapt better. And the weaknesses you believe that you have are adapting, abusing stage control, knowing your limits, and falling into autopilot. Anything we missed?
No, seems about right.
Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and get started with this then. Okay, so we can barely hear you. I'm gonna turn you up a little bit more.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, that should be better. But if anything, just speak up.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and go to any generic Omega stage here. And what I want to do, like a quick, let's say 3-stock match in an infinite time environment, just so I can kind of gauge where you are right now before we get started on anything else.
Alright.
Alright, go. Okay. Okay. What I'm gathering so far is that you're mostly a passive player. You seem to struggle a little bit in making approaches when you're forced to. Very nice. you have a tendency to hold forward a little bit. Oh shoot, no DI on that.
Whoops.
Okay, good. Ah, my bad. That should have been stock. Okay. So, what I'm gathering so far is, like I said, you're mostly a passive player. You feel most comfortable when you're forcing opponents to approach. But if the opponent forces you to approach, you tend to struggle a little bit in finding a safe way to do so. You have a tendency to hold forward, which means you're moving, like you're trying to move towards center stage as much as possible when you're in a disadvantaged position, which tends to make your movements predictable and makes it easy for your opponent to catch you out. So,
Okay.
let's go ahead and go from the top in terms of fundamentals. You have a pretty good understanding of your character. You're PR'd for a reason. When you have what you have, you can make it work. I didn't see too much in the way of Lucas combos. Maybe your combo game isn't as good as it can be, but maybe you just didn't find the opportunities to catch me in the stuff. So I'm not going to dock you too much on that. Anyways, so assuming you already know your fundamentals, maybe you don't know, you already know like the basic building blocks of what makes Lucas or what makes Smash in general. Okay, so you've watched other lessons of mine in the past, right?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of this is probably going to be review, but let's just go pace by pace, because my structure in giving lessons has changed a little bit as of late. So, first thing I want to talk about is the concept of stage control. So, right here, where we are at, you can very easily call this neutral, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what a lot of people refer to as neutral. But what exactly is neutral? Why is this neutral?
Because we have an even amount of stage control.
And it goes a little less than it's a little deeper than that. It's not just that we have an even amount of stage control, it's that we have an even amount of options available to us. The reason that we have an even amount of options is partially because of stage control and partially because of other factors. Like if you were in the corner over here and I was here, then you would be at a disadvantage. This wouldn't be considered neutral. You have a similar amount of options, but because you have less stage control, you can't move backwards. Or you can, but it'd be risky. That's the whole concept that goes into it. So, what exactly is stage control? How can we map out how much control of the stage we have?
I don't know. By the position that we're...
Yeah, but
currently
like,
in, I
for
guess.
example, Right now we're standing. How much stage do you control, and how much stage do I control? These are the kind of questions you need to be asking yourself when growing in any part of the game. You need to dig into a deeper meaning, understand why things are going on with that.
Okay.
So,
I'd say about to like right here.
you think that's how much stage you
Or-
control, or how much stage I control?
I'd say about right here. That's how much I control.
Okay. And why is that?
Probably because my longest move is about right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a pretty good guess. It's not so much about your longest move though, because you could control even more than that. It's not based on the range of your moves, but it's based on the amount of range you can cover before the opponent can react. So, like, take a character like Sheik, for example. Sheik has ridiculous stage like, even if you take away her needles, she still has ridiculous. Or even a better example, let's say Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong has an incredible reach, even though his hitboxes aren't that big, because it's not just that. No, it's not just based on your range. It's based on the amount that he can cover, the range that he can cover before his opponent can react. Diddy Kong can't really, maybe wouldn't have the biggest range if he just jumped in forward air like that. What he can do is he can run in forward air before you can react, which means he has longer effective range. And that establishes his threat zone. It's a bubble around, imagine a bubble around both of our characters. That is the total range that they can cover before the opponent can react.
Okay.
That the amount of time, average reaction time in Smash is generally around 19 frames, because 13 frames is a human's average reaction time, and then you add in 6 frames of average input delay from like the setups and the game itself. Monitors might reduce that, but generally it's going to be about 6 frames. Especially you go to a tournament, you don't know what kind of monitors people are bringing. So on an average, it's about 19 frames that you can react to something. If your reaction time's a little better, maybe you can be a little better, but that all depends on the person. So what you want to think about the range that they can throw out, or the attacks they can throw out that covers within that range. You want to put a bubble on yourself, and you want to put a bubble on your opponent. But it's not just about that bubble. It's also about the space that they are denying to your opponent. So, like, for example, right now, your bubble reaches around that spot that you mentioned. My bubble would reach probably around here. So, between this spot and this spot, which is your bubble, there is some dead zone. And that is stage that neither of us control. So that right there is a resource that you can take. If you step forward into that range, now you control that. If I step backwards, I create even more dead space that you can take for yourself. Now, the space behind you, even though it's outside of your bubble, it's not in your direct control, it's indirectly in your control, because you can step backwards and claim that, while your opponent can't step past you. They have to get through you first. So that's two factors of stage control. There's direct control and there's indirect control. And it's based on how you position yourself in order to take or give away some of the control of the stage. So, like, maybe you think, I want as much stage control as possible. Why would I want to back up and give my opponent some range? Well, if your opponent is running towards you, then they are constantly closing into your zone, which means they're going to be putting their bubble on top of you, which is where you don't want to be. So you can see them coming from a mile away. So what you can do is, on reaction, you can take a step backwards, keep them at the edge of your bubble, and make it so that they can't reach you. Even if their attacks are, like, maybe not the longest range. Like, from here, I can't really hit you with anything, but if I run forward and back here, I can hit you before you can react. Or I can run forward and up smash. I could, like, take a step forward and pivot up smash, and there's not much you can do to react to that. So what you can do is you can take a step backwards, put yourself at a range where you can react to it, and as they're closing the distance on you, they're putting themselves in a range where they can't react to you, and that right there is your opportunity to punish them. That's when you take a step back to zone them.
Okay.
Which is something you're good at. You did this a lot during the match. Like, you would step backwards to try to pivot grab my approaches. And that's, this is a bit of the science behind it. So, besides that, if you're aware of this concept, you can imagine, like, if in certain situations, let's say I'm on a ledge and you're over here and you want to push your advantage. If you come towards me, then, like, right there, you're at a pretty good range. You're zoning me off, you have me at the edge of your bubble. If I try coming into you, you can step backwards to use your control of the stage as a resource to maintain this advantage. And if I try coming towards you, I'm stepping into your bubble. The more bubble I have to traverse, the more danger I'm in. So, on the same token, if you step closer to me, then there's less bubble that I have to get through. So if you stay too close, like for example, you go for a risky dash grab, and I roll, now you're at a disadvantage and I'm at an advantage from a single exchange because you overextended. You made it easier for me to get past your bubble. At the same token, if I'm on the ledge here, and you're at a distance, it becomes very difficult for me to break through. But if you get closer to me, then I can very easily roll, or I can like jump over you with an air dodge or something like that, and now I would be at an advantage. So generally, that's why you want to stay at a distance with edge guard. But you can use those things in order to bait options. Like for example, if you run towards the ledge, you might bait a roll out of me, and then you can do a pivot forward smash or a pivot grab or whatever, and you can get something out of that. At the same time, if you're close and you step away, then you might bait an option like a neutral getup, and then you'd be able to punish that. Because the opponent's thinking you're backing off would say, hey, this is a good time to use one of my safest options. And then at that point, if you have something that can punish that, then you can make good use of that. So these subtle shifts in control of the stage are something that'll give you a huge leg up on your opponent. Because if your opponent isn't actively exploiting this resource, then it makes it all the easier for you to exploit the resource on your own accord. And at the same time, if your opponent is actively trying to exploit this resource, and you let them do it, then you're putting yourself in a bad position, and you're giving them an advantage over you that they really don't need to have. So it's something that I want you to be constantly aware of at all times.
Okay. So,
moving past that, I want to talk about different playstyles. So I mentioned that you're generally a passive player. And usually when people think about passive, they think like defensive. They think like you're going to stay back, you're going to wait for an approach and punish it. So someone might describe it like bait and punish style. It's like, whatever. They have a lot of different names for it. Oftentimes when they think offense, they think I'm going to rush you down and hit you. When they think defense, they think I'm going to stay away and just like bait out your approaches, like just force you to approach. But I think it goes a little deeper than that. Because, for example, if I stay back and I'm constantly throwing fireballs and I am spacing you out, like throwing attacks when you come close, would you call this a defensive playstyle?
Yeah.
What about it is defensive?
Yeah. Well, you're staying back.
I would call that passive. I wouldn't call that defensive. I'm throwing out attacks. I'm putting myself on a limb. Even if I'm far away from you, I'm still committing to an option. I'm still playing proactively. Meanwhile, what if I run up to your face and I shield? Would you consider that an offensive playstyle?
No. More of a defensive, since you're not throwing out attacks.
So I think of it as a sort of quadrant. We have passive versus active or aggressive, whatever you want to call it. I prefer active. Passive versus active. And then there's offense versus defense. You can be passive and be offensive. You can be active and be defensive. They're not mutually exclusive. And when people describe playstyles like passive aggressive, I think that that's like such a huge misnomer, because those two playstyles are at odds. But that's the word they chose for it. Anyways, here's the way I see things. So, like I said, this playstyle where I run up to you and shield, or run up to you and maybe use a defensive option, run up to you and bait an option that comes out from you, that I would describe as active defense. This playstyle where I'm zoning you, I would describe as passive offense. Then there's the ones that people usually associate, which are active offense, rushing you down, and passive defense, which is just staying away, camping, zoning, just trying to bait an approach. You run towards me, and I use a reactive option, things like that. The way I define these, because I can't just use lofty terms like this and not define them. I believe passive is a playstyle where you aim to defend your control of the stage. You are staying within your bubble and back. So essentially, I would not push past the range that my bubble reaches, because in doing so, that would be making a commitment. Passive playstyles generally don't make those sort of commitments on the grounds of stage control. Active would be trying to take your control of the stage for you. I want to extend past my bubble and break into your zone and take it for myself. So that would mean either forcing you back, or forcing you to retreat, or crossing you up. Then on the same token, offense would be using options proactively, making commitments, making guesses, making plays. Like, I'm throwing out an attack, expecting you to do something. No, expecting my attack to just beat you out, or to beat out the option that you choose. It's higher risk, but higher reward. And then there's defense, which is playing reactively. I'm waiting for you to do something by using a safe option, and then I'm aiming to punish whatever you do. Whether I'm air dodging, or spot dodging, or rolling, or shielding, or just stepping out of the way, or abusing iframes with whatever character-specific tools, maybe using super armor, maybe using a counter, things like that. Those would be examples of active defense. Or those would be examples of a defensive playstyle, not specifically active defense. So, moving on from that, I lay these out like this so that it's very easy to recognize what kind of playstyle you're using. You, as a player, I noticed, generally tend to aim for passive offense. You like to stay back, you like to zone, you like to throw out attacks, play proactively, essentially force people to get into your zone and then take a step back using your stage control as a resource and smacking them in the face for approaching. Now, you would want to be able to recognize these playstyles from your opponent and be able to see what kind of player they are. And the reason you want to be able to do this is because there's a relationship between these playstyles where one beats the other. Imagine you go to let's say you keep playing the same way you've always played, passive offense. You keep on zoning people out. Considering that I believe there's a rock, paper, scissors aspect between the different playstyles. So imagine you go to a rock, paper, scissors tournament and you decide you're a rock main and you always pick rock.
Okay.
You are going to quickly realize that paper is busted and scissors is low tier. You're gonna usually win against paper, you're usually gonna win against scissors, you're gonna tie with rock. And the same thing happens when you play Smash with different playstyles. The character's toolkit does change things a little bit in terms of specific strengths and weaknesses, what is stronger, what is here, but you can't always play the same playstyle because you're playing the way you're playing, you're going to struggle against active defense, and you're going to not struggle that much against active offense. People rushing you down, generally you're not going to have too bad a time. If I'm constantly trying to find a way to break through to you and you just keep spacing me out the same way you do, like let's play a little one stock practice bout real quick. I'm going to just straight up rush you down.
All right.
Okay. So even though you took a lot of percent, that seemed pretty easy, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, reset your percent. Now instead, I'm going to aim to play active defense. I don't want you to see the difference.
Okay.
This is not making the point that I want to make. I may need to try this again.
Okay.
That was longer range. Alright, let's try that again. One more time.
Oh.
Well, that one seemed harder, I'm hoping. Essentially because I wasn't making commitments when approaching. I was approaching, but going into your zone, which means when I wasn't able to react, I got hit out. But when you overcommitted to an anti-approach option, then I was able to punish you pretty easily. That's the goal with this playstyle. Now, normally I would want to mix in a little less active and a little more passive, because I want to stay at the edge of your threat zone. What happened there was I ended up closing the distance a little bit too much. So, meanwhile, if I were to just play passive, then we would be at odds, because it's a relatively... both playstyles tend to tie with each other. If you fight another zoner, it's probably going to go to the ends of the earth, and it might even go to timeout if you're both too persistent in trying to zone. So, the point that I want to make here is you want to be able to pick out the playstyle that ends up beating the opponent's current playstyle. So, if you are... if your opponent is playing Rushdown, then keep playing the way you're doing, passively. If your opponent is playing passively, then you might benefit from playing a bait and punish playstyle. And if your opponent's trying to bait and punish your options, then consider rushing them down. Like, for example, if I run towards you, and you know that I'm going to shield and try to bait your options, then you should consider either crossing me up or hitting me with something that I can't react to. Like that. Maybe push a little bit past your zone. when I'm approaching you. So I'm running at you, I go to shield, and then you just grab.
Oops.
If you stay put, then it's still an example of passive play. What I want you to do is I want you to push past your safe zone in order to catch them before they have the chance. Because if I run up and spot dodge, then they're still going to be able to get through if you try to grab in place. Because they're aiming for that, you know?
Yeah.
But if you're able to catch them out of distance, then you can potentially get something off of that. So, that's the relationship I feel it has. So, Rushdown, which is passive offense. No, active offense. Rushdown, oh my god. Rushdown, which is active offense, beats passive defense. No, oh my god, I'm getting tongue-tied. Okay, lay out my thoughts. Rushdown beats bait and punish. Bait and punish beats passive. Passive beats rushdown. So, active offense beats active defense. Active defense beats passive in general. And passive in general beats active offense.
Okay.
Anyways, let's go ahead and change up the environment a little bit.
Okay.
Because we're going to be here for 2 hours. You got a favorite, Omega?
No, I do not.
Okay, let's opt to go to...
Oh, I went Pokemon Stadium too.
Okay, I went to Gara. Whatever. Okay. Alright, this should work out. Alright, so moving forward, I want to talk a little bit about footsies before we move any further. Because there's going to be time, like, I can lay it out in those brief guidelines of you want to play this way against this guy, you want to play this way against this guy. But especially in the concept of active defense, that I feel is the hardest one for most people to grasp. So, I want you to envision this. This is actually a great stage for what I want to teach. So, okay, I want you to envision the edge of this Pokeball as my threat zone. So,
Okay.
do you know a little bit of what footsies are in fighting games?
Basically, like, I don't know, I'd say like poking inside of their threat zone and then retreating quickly.
Well, I mean, that's a very very basic way of laying it out. But what I believe footsies are is essentially the concept of moving in and out of someone's threat zone in order to bait an overextension. So, in this case, my threat zone is the edge of the Pokeball on your side. So, I want you to envision that as a solid representation of the do not cross line. You want to be able to force me to pick an option by stepping inside that zone and at the same time not overcommitting in a way that'll get you punished. Like, let's say if you step into that zone, I'm going to I'm going to back air. So right from that range, if I back air, you can react to it extremely easily. But if you step closer, maybe not such a good time. You can't react to that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do it here, then you can definitely react. You can pull up your shield and then you can punish it. So, you want to be able to stay within the range of outside of that zone, but you also want to get into the zone. Now, there is a certain way of playing it out that'll end up making it a little easier. Here, position yourself where I'm at, so I can be the one who's trying to infiltrate the threat zone. So, this is where the concept of movement comes in. In Melee, you know how people would dash dance a lot? And some people, if you ask people like why they do it, they might say, "Oh, it makes it so you can't tell which way I'm going," or "It's just fancy movement." And like they got many different explanations for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at a complete scrublet dash dancing, and you look at a pro player dash dancing, there's a completely different reason for it. They're not dash dancing just to look fancy. They're not dash dancing just to make it difficult to see which way they're going. Because when you think about it, let's say I'm dash dancing in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which way am I going? My answer to that is who cares? Once you go, you go. But let's say, again, I'm going to be standing still. Which way am I going?
No way.
There's no difference. The difference between this and this is that this looks flashier, you know?
Yeah, it forces a reaction.
But so does standing still does the exact same effect, except when you do this, you can't shield.
Yeah.
So I lose an option by doing that, and I don't gain anything, depending on how I do it. Now, the reason that people dash dance in Melee is because they want to enter someone, they want to use the added distance to poke into someone's range and poke out to bait an option. This right here is what creates it, because you can't tell whether they're going in or going out. So the Smash 4 equivalent, people often say perfect pivot. So like, you can use this potentially to step in someone's range and then step out. Once I step here, I can't react to you throwing out an option, but if I step back, then I can react again. So let's say I do this. When I approach into your zone, I want you to throw out a forward air.
Okay.
So like from here, you can do just do a rising forward air. I should be hit anyways. Like that, yeah. So when I step into your zone, you can hit me with a forward air for free. But if I do this, hold on, and then you throw out the forward air, I'm not in range to get punished. And then from there, I can potentially punish you. Because I'm not trying to react to it, I'm trying to bait it. And I'm anticipating that you're going to do it. So as soon as you do it, then we're going to have problems. Here's another thing. Let's say you are shielding, right? No, let's say I'm running up to you. And you're at death percent, so you're scared of up smash, right? Or you're scared of grab.
Yeah.
And then I run towards you, and you spot dodge. That was extremely easy, right?
Yeah.
It came from the other side of the stage. You know exactly where I'm going. What if I do this?
Ooh.
That right there is a nice example of footsies. Or that's one example of spacing out. Now, the concept of footsies as it applies to actual FGCs is often like you're baiting an option so that they commit to it, and then you use that overextension to create your opportunity. So let's say you throw out like a forward tilt, you throw out a hurt box, and then I can punish that hurt box. Like in the case of Bowser versus someone, Bowser can step in someone's range and then step out and then pivot grab. And even though his pivot grab wouldn't hit you if you're standing still, it will hit you if you try to hit him, because you're extended out of hurt box outwards. So that's what I want to try to transition into this. That's the concept that I want to try to fake out, but it's a little simpler than that. Smash 4 doesn't have that many movement options that you can use to bait it out, so you gotta think about what you have available and how you can use it. But it's that option of dancing around your opponent's range and threat zone that you can apply from other fighting games. And that's something that'll be extremely useful when playing active defense, considering that what you want to do is you want to bait your opponent's options and then punish it. And you can use that by moving around, as well as by using defensive options. I could run into your zone and shield if I'm expecting the forward air. I could also run to your range and step back, maybe with a roll, or a dash in place, or rather an extended dash dance, or a perfect pivot, or like many other options like that. I could jump backwards. I can use the dash the pivot animation in order to do that. Depending on the character, you have different options available to you. That's what I want to make clear here. Now, before we move on to anything else, I do want to stress the importance of understanding the different playstyles, because this is something that mostly applies in neutral. You said that one of your weaknesses was being able to adapt quickly.
Yes.
And if you're able to recognize your opponent's playstyle and able to switch up your playstyle to counteract them in an instant, that right there is adapting. If you think about it in the terms of very specific options, then that's only going to be helpful against lower level players that always go for very specific things. Like, for example, if you know that I'm going to run up to you and grab, then you can adapt to that and spot dodge and then punish the grab. If you know that I'm going to do this, then you know that instead of reacting to the normal dash grab, you'd have to react to the bait. And then you can punish that pretty easily. So if they keep doing it, you body them. That would be like a very simple way of adapting. But what I'm trying to teach you is a way to adapt that covers more than just one individual adaptation. I want you to be able to adapt to their entire kit in an instant. And by simplifying things in the way that I laid it out, it makes it a lot easier to do so. Make sense?
All right.
Okay, so let's play a little practice bout real quick. And you won't be able to switch between the playstyles very easily at first because you're not used to it. But I want you to try to make an effort to recognize the playstyle that I'm using and to try to counteract it. And I'm going to be doing the same for you. And it's going to be like a bit of a dance of death. That's what I'm hoping for, at least.
Okay.
Alright, let's go. Okay. That was something else completely different, but so in that exercise, I noticed you only played passive. So I only played active defense. You need to be able to mix up what you're doing in order to counteract me. If you see that I'm constantly going for active defense, try rushing me down. Try turning the tables on me. So, for example, if I'm constantly going to be approaching, you want to be with a shield, because you're throwing out attacks, then you can dash grab me before I can react. Because I'm waiting for your reaction. If your reaction is something I can't react to that beats me, then you win. Or if you throw out... another thing you could do is instead of aiming for a win, you can aim for a tie. So, for example, you're playing rock, paper, scissors, and you think your opponent's going to throw out rock, but you're not sure. Like, let's say you threw out scissors last round, and you're not sure if your opponent's going to play rock. You could go for the hard read and play paper. But at the same time, if he throws If he doesn't play rock, then he will either win or tie with that. So what you could do is you can go for the safe option and try to aim for the tie. Play rock as well. Because if you're right and he plays rock, then you're safe. But if you're right... No, but if he ends up trying to play a level above, then... No, or if he tries to tie your last option, then you win. It's like the safe tool. So, applying this to here, if you see your opponent playing active defense, what you can do to aim for tie is to play active defense as well. Let's say he's trying to mix up passive play and active defense, like he's trying to switch between those two, depending on the situation. If you play just straight out active defense, you will always either win or tie until he adapts. So you can use that as a safe way of doing that.
Okay.
So let's give that another shot.
Bodied.
Okay, another thing to keep in mind is that it's not always about just straight up winning the encounter. Even if you don't hit your opponent, if you gain a better trade from the exchange, then you win. So for example, let's say I run up to you and shield. And instead of trying to directly contest me, you jump over me and like hit me with a back air or something like that. Or
Okay.
like maybe you do something like this with your forward air to like hit my shield as you pass over me. Like if you're on the if you're like right here, for example, you already used some of your station control as a resource, and I run up to you and shield, and then you cross me up, you now have control of the stage. So even though none of us hit each other, you still won the exchange. And so long as you can use that moving forward as an advantage, then you got all you needed from that trade. It's not always about percent.
All right.
So let's give that another shot. Uh-oh.
Well,
That was unfortunate. Okay, let's try that one more time. I feel like you were starting to get the idea, but some old habits are still holding you back. That was significantly better. Let's try that one more time. Oh, wow. I should have expected that, but... Okay. So yeah, you're getting a bit better at that. Now you're not just constantly trying to run away and getting bodied. Now you're actually taking advantage of the stage control that I'm giving up when I try to chase you down. At least it's the impression I'm getting. Let's do one last time, and then let's move on.
Okay. Oops.
That was almost awful.
I know.
Baiting the roll. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting the idea. You're definitely mixing in a lot more playstyles now. Now you're seeing exactly what is the reason that you're getting boxed in. You're making it a lot harder for me to box you in. And part of that is something that I do want to touch on in the next part. As a quick note, something that I want to mention. It ties in a little bit with the concept of active defense. One very common option that people like to do when trying to approach someone who's a projectile user is a running shield. You know this very well. You're a projectile user. People try to fight you. They're going to be doing that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's important to notice something about the way the running shield works. When you start a dash, you can't shield immediately. You have to wait like 8 frames or 9 frames or something like that before the shield comes out. It's different for every character. Every character has a different timing for when they're able to act out of their initial dash with the shield. So, keeping that in mind, if you know that they're going to try to run up... Yeah, walking shield is definitely an option that can be done to approach this as well. But we're going to be talking specifically about this and how to counter it. Why walking shield is better. Because, yeah, walking shield you can bring up on frame 1, and that definitely sounds better. But running shield, the advantage that it gives you is that it allows you to slide when you block something. Like, I'm going to run towards you. I want you to throw a PK Fire at me. like a retreating one.
Oh, wait.
Or try to zone me with like a forward air or something like that. Notice how I didn't get sent back as far. If you forward air my shield raw, you're gonna push it back. But if I run towards you with my shield, then I'm going to slide as I do it, which allows me to break through projectiles and zoning hits. So if you try to zone me with your forward air as I approach, then I'm gonna break through it completely. That's the advantage that the running shield gives me. If I walk in shield, I don't slide nearly as far, so you can't zone me. So you can zone me a little easier, but at the same time, I can bring it up faster. That's the advantage. The disadvantage that it has is the fact that you can't bring it up immediately, which here's one way that you can exploit it. If you believe that your opponent is going to run towards you, doesn't matter what option they're going to do unless it's like a dash attack or like an instant nair or something stupid like that. No matter what character you think they're going to approach you, then they have a window of vulnerability before they can throw out an option. Even if it's something like a dash grab. Most dash grabs, no, the fastest dash grab in the game is frame 7. So in those initial frames, you can throw something out that'll beat them out. So if you throw out a lingering option or a rapid option like your down tilts, you can very easily stop them from breaking that distance. So like if you're at this distance and you're worried about someone coming at you from a dash grab, then, or with a running shield, you can just throw out your down tilts. Because if I run towards you, let me get good space, and you're throwing those out, then you're going to hit me before I can shield. And then you can potentially follow that up. A lot of people do this with like rapid jabs that can allow them to bring in, or maybe just actually throw out the different options for the longer range. Just depends on the situation. Or maybe even a lingering option like a nair, like a low nair, you can use as an anti-approach option in this way. So long as it will hit them, if the character's tall enough, or if you time it right. I guess it works best if you're like a little closer, but yeah, that's something you want to keep in mind. So for example, you're fighting DDD. DDD has no options out of a dash that can come out very quickly. None. The fastest option he probably has is jumping nair, and that is pretty damn slow. Or running shield. Running spot dodge is the same time as running shield. So if you hit him in the early frames of that, as soon as you see the man run towards you, you can grab him.
Okay.
Free. It doesn't matter what character they, unless you're scared of the spot dodge. The spot dodge or the roll are the only things that can really dodge your grab, but anything else you can beat out with your grab, especially at the tether. They run towards you, you can grab them. And Lucas's grab isn't that unsafe. It's a tether, but it after they cut the ending lag a lot, it's pretty safe. Just think about that. The only thing that they can really threaten you is a long disjointed dash attack, like maybe clouds. That's something you want to avoid, or like a jumping attack. But besides that, especially if you think that they're going to dash from the position they're in, you could just hit them. Like, I don't know, like if I'm at this distance and you think I'm gonna dash towards you, then you could just hit me with anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And when I dash towards you, so long as it's in range, like you could dash attack me, you can do anything like that, because when I run towards you in shield, it's not going to come out, and you're going to end up getting stupid kills where your opponent's going to be like, but I was shielding. So that's something important to keep in mind when you have a frame advantage on your opponent, because if your opponent's first option is going to be to run, they cannot shield, and you need to be able to exploit that in the moment. Now, we just hit the halfway mark on the lesson. This is a 2-hour lesson. So let's go ahead and move on to the next concept. So, we touched a bit on the concept of neutral in the beginning of the lesson, where both of us have equal stage control, both of us have equal amount of options. Now, the amount of options here is a very, very important aspect of what makes the neutral game neutral. Essentially, when we are in neutral, you could do whatever you want, and there's very little, unless you're a predictable player, your opponent cannot guess what you're going to do. So I can run towards you, I can run away, I can walk towards you, I can walk away, I can shield, I can roll, I can spot that, or the other way around, I can roll, I can spot dodge, I can jump, I can throw out an attack, I can retreat, like I can bait an option, like you can't possibly guess what I'm going to do unless I've been doing it repeatedly. So, if you can't guess what I'm going to do, how are you going to make reads in neutral?
You aren't.
You aren't. The only way that you can make a read in neutral is if the option, no, if it's a very safe read, meaning you're not going to get punished if you fail, or if you've conditioned your opponent, or if they are predictable players. Beyond that, you cannot make reads in neutral. Don't try it. It's not worth it. Now, safe reads would be offensive options. Things like running up and throwing out an attack, or trying to space someone out, or things like that. Those, I would consider those like weak reads. Like you wouldn't even call them reads. But when you think about them, that's what they are. You're playing proactively. You're putting your foot in the door and throwing out an option. Like what you're doing right there, that's a nice anti-air. Because when they jump, so if they try jumping towards you, you can keep them out of the air with a lingering option like that. And you can get some pretty decent rapport, and they can't really punish it very easily. With some exceptions. There's always a way to punish it. Like if you do that and then I run towards you and shield, I can punish it. So long as they keep holding shield. Now, let's say I'm in the air now. When I'm in the air, what can I do?
Well, your aerials and
yeah, I can use aerial attacks. I can air dodge.
Air dodge, fastball.
Fastball. I can double jump. And I can use options that keep me stalled in the air. Besides that, I don't have any other options. So from all these options I had on the ground, I now have significantly less. But I can still double jump. However, once I double jump, what can I do?
Throw out attacks or air dodge.
Yeah, I can do everything that I mentioned before. I mean, footstool is another option that I have that I didn't really mention before. If you're just shielding, trying to bait the landing, and the person just footstools on your shield, they can get back in the air. It's a fix-up option. But essentially, once you double jump, you lose that option, and now you have everything else. Now, there is another thing that comes with jumping. When you jump, you can drift a certain distance. But it's not an endless amount. Imagine a cone underneath you when you jump. And this cone is the maximum range you can cover with your jump. As your jump progresses, the cone shifts. Because now you have more limited range that you can cover the longer it goes on. This cone is going to be a great visual aid when you are trying to track your opponent's position. So like, for example, if I jump straight forward here and never shift from forward, I can go this far. I can't go any farther than this, unless I double jump. If I double jump, then my cone will shift a new cone will be created based on the position that I double jump. And now, there, I get a new cone, and depending on where I go, I have a maximum distance. I have this mountain over here, and I have the mountain backwards. And from the point I double jump, that's a new position that you need to think about. Where is he going to be? I guess it's like 2 mountains from the point of jump. 2 mounds. And those cover the maximum distance that you can travel. And it's important to think about the maximum distance that they can travel. Because if you step just barely out of that reach, like let's say I'm jumping towards you. If you are outside of the reach of this mound, then what can you punish me? No, what can I hit you with? Nothing. The only, like, there, you were just barely inside the reach. But if you see me approaching you with a jump, and I don't have any options to mix it up, then you can very easily just stay outside of the range of my jump and punish me. Here's a practical example. Let's say I'm off stage and I'm trying to recover, but I'm doing an aggressive option. Like, let me get on this side. I'm doing an aggressive option, like I'm going to try to land on stage towards you. Maybe with a tornado. What can you do in this situation?
Whoops. You can just back up.
You can back up out of that range. And at the same time, you can punish me. Because when I land, there's going to be at least 4 frames of landing lag where you have a chance to catch me out. You can grab me, you can forward smash, you can do whatever you want, so long as I am outside of your range. There's nothing that I can really do to threaten you. So let's say you're closer still. You're closer, I get knocked off stage, I jump back, and then you can step out of range and punish me. This right here is called holding forward. And it's a habit that you have. It's a very, very common habit that you need to keep in mind. Because if I knock you off stage, and you try to threaten me by coming directly on stage, I could take a step back and punish you extremely easily, which I did several times when we were practicing. Something like taking a step back and up smashing, or taking a step back and forward smashing and you're dead. The hard reads. And the reason that I'm able to make reads now is because when you're in this position where you have less options, you transition to a disadvantaged state. If you have a lower amount of options, you have more of a disadvantage against your opponents. And as you have lower options available, then your opponent will have less options that they need to keep in mind, and more options that will cover multiple of your options. Like if I have one thing that I can do that covers 3 things, like for example, if I just hold shield, then this will cover you landing on me and attacking. This will cover you landing in any sort of laggy way. It will allow me to drop shield and act out of the shield. It just covers so much, and it's very safe. It's low committal. There are ways around it, but if I cover like 4 things that you can do, then you know, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So that's something that you need to keep in mind. That right there is a situation where reads start being possible. A soft read, as opposed to a hard read, would be something that covers multiple options at once, while a hard read covers one option. And usually gives you a lot of reward. So for example, this cover that I was talking about, where you would jump back on stage and I would take a step back and forward smash, that would be a hard read. That's like, I know exactly what you're going to do. I'm just going to step out of range and I'm going to punish you. That's a very predictable path.
Okay.
Another thing that you need to keep in mind is if you are if you are constantly trying to get back to center stage, like you're at a disadvantage, you want to get back to center stage, you want to reset to neutral. That's what I would generally advise. However, if you try too hard to do that, then it makes your path a little bit predictable. There was several times when I was sparring with you that I knocked you off stage, then you double jumped back and I instantly caped you, and you just went jumping away. The reason I was able to do that was because I knew you would jump back towards the stage. Even though you do want to get back to the stage, you don't always have to drift back to the stage. If you do, then it makes your flight path predictable. Make sense? There's going to be a lot of opponents that aim to try to cover an air dodge, and they're going to be staying in front of you and just staying out like this. Because in that situation where you're off stage, your options are even more limited. And it's like you have to double jump, you have to air dodge, you have to throw out an attack, you have to do something like that. And there's going to be a lot of people that end up doing that. So, from there, it's a bit of a tricky position to be in. You generally don't want to be in that position, but when you do, you want to be able to mix up your opponent. And you do have options there, even if there's limited options. You always go for the obvious option that it's going to be very easy for them to track you. Another thing you can do to get out of that situation is instead of drifting forward, you can drift away. So long as you can still make it back to the stage, you still have room to work with, you can drift away as opposed to drifting towards the stage. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that you have that, considering you have a very long recovery. So if drifting towards the stage would get you killed in a situation where they're trying to guard the ledge against you, you can shift that up and drift away instead. It's always about recognizing the options that you do have and making the most about it, so that it makes it a lot harder for your opponent to predict what you're going to do. At the same time, you want to be careful when they catch on to that, because if they do catch on to that, then they can potentially put you in an even worse situation than you were before. But at the same time, that creates counterplay. Because now, instead of just getting caught out in that 50-50 situation, you're creating like a 25-25-25, like that kind of garbage, where there's multiple possibilities, they can't cover all of them, and you have more of a chance to get back to stage. And also, that safe option that they were trying to cover now becomes available again because they're not specifically trying to cover that anymore. That's a concept I'll go into in a bit, but I do want to finish up here real quick. I'm still talking about neutral advantage and disadvantage. So we've been talking about a bit more of disadvantage right now, because that I feel is more of an important skill to have. Oftentimes, let's say I knock you up in the air, a lighter position than being knocked off stage, and you try to land on me like that. That seems like the obvious choice. You want to hit me. However, if you do that, your flight path becomes very predictable, and I know exactly what you're going to want to do. So I can step out of range, or I can aim to punish that option, or I can block, punish multiple options, then I can just keep on doing that repeatedly. That right there, even though it's a high reward because you land with a nair and you're able to start a combo, it's high risk. So you don't always want to do that. What I would recommend instead, because your options are limited in this situation, instead of trying to land on me, I want you to try to reset to neutral. Try to get to a position where you have more options available so that it becomes harder for your opponent to predict what you're going to do. And your opponent is going to be trying to cover that space. Like, they might do this and then run up to you like that, even if you're trying to reset to neutral. But if they are trying constantly to catch your landing, then that creates more opportunities for them to make an overextension, and for you to potentially turn that disadvantage into an advantage if they fully overextend. Like, for example, let's say I knock you off stage, and then I try to chase you down, and I'm now in this position because I failed. Now you're at advantage, I'm at disadvantage because I overextended. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities like this that you're going to notice when people fail to keep up the pressure. So I'm trying to combo you right now. And if you try to directly contest me right now, it's going to be very obvious what you want to do. But if you instead try to reset to neutral, now you had a brief instant where the only advantage I had was a frame advantage. That's an important concept that I want to touch on briefly. There's going to be situations where you get hit with a light attack and you can't act immediately out of it. Even though you're not put in like a ridiculous amount of stun, you can't act immediately. While your opponent is able to act, and maybe they can't hit you with a true combo, but your options are lessened. This right here is called a frame advantage. Like, let's say I come up to you and try to down air like that. Even though this isn't a true combo, it's very, very close to a true combo, and there's very few things you can do here. If you try to attack me, then I'm just going to grab you before your attack even comes out most of the time. But in that brief moment where you're able to act, you can still roll away, you can still jump, you can still do many things like that. And those are going to be the options that you can use to escape. You don't want to directly try to contest me in those situations because I have a frame advantage. If you try to directly contest me, you're going to get caught, you're going to get comboed, or you're going to die. Like, here's another common frame trap that people like to do. Try jumping at me. This is something that you can induce as well. There's a lot of Lucas players that like to do something like that, or with down tilt. They might like down tilt twice and then forward smash. Because that creates a frame advantage. If they are scared, if they are pressured, then, or if they try to shield. Like, I tried to shield there. I wasn't able to, even though it wasn't a true combo. Because that down tilt propped me up in the air and forced me to air dodge instead. But at the same time, I could have jumped away just fine. It's just because I felt pressured, there were my options were limited, and I got scared. This is something you can induce in people. trying to force them to pick an option that they think is safe, but ends up getting them killed. Even though it's not a true combo, you can still get so much out of this. And your forward smash is relatively safe too, so that's an added bonus. Anyways, that's the brief cover on advantage, disadvantage, all that good stuff. So, before we move on, anything else you want to refresh on? Anything that maybe wasn't fully clear?
No, I think it's good.
All right. So, moving on, I want to briefly touch upon a more advanced fighting game concept that we mentioned before in part, but I want to elaborate a little bit on it. Have you heard the term Yomi before?
I heard it in one of your videos.
Okay. So, going on review, Yomi is a concept of establishing which options to select in a certain situation, depending on what your opponent predicts and what you predict. So let's say there's the obvious situation. Let's say Mario runs towards you. Mario wants to grab you. Mario loves grabs. He wants to hold little boys in his hand, combo them to oblivion. You know?
Yeah.
So you know this is the obvious choice. Mario runs towards you, he's probably gonna grab him. So you want to avoid the grab. That right there, what I mentioned, is Yomi level 0, the obvious choice. So you want to avoid the grab. So you end up spot dodging when I run towards you. It's very obvious what's happening here. You spot dodge and then you punish me. That would be Yomi level 1. Your prediction, the counterplay to the obvious choice. So, Yomi level 2 would be, I know you want to spot dodge. So, I'm gonna do this. Fade out your spot dodge. That would be the counterplay to the counterplay. And then Yomi level 3 would be, how do I get around that? Well, I'm going to spot dodge later. I'm gonna react to the first one. I know you're gonna be doing this, so I'm gonna spot dodge to the second one. And that's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
But then if I just run up and grab you and you try reacting to the second one, I'm gonna get it. So that would be right back to Yomi level 0. I usually call the second reaction the ballsy play, the call out. And then the first one would be like the scrub play, the obvious choice. So oftentimes you're going to see top players who get caught out by people just running up and doing things because they're expecting counterplay. And then once they realize what's happening, they tend to adapt. But there are always those stories about a top player losing to some miscellaneous scrub in some fighting game because they got called out. Maybe in one game, maybe not a full set. And that right there is what creates that that dynamic. This was a very basic example. There's a lot more interesting examples throughout the game, but that's kind of the dynamic I want to make. So let's say, what would you consider to be your strongest option as a Lucas player?
Probably,
I don't mean like strongest in terms of utility. I mean highest reward.
probably grab.
Okay. So let's think in terms of grab. So there's a game of rock, paper, scissors when it comes to grab. There's shield, grab, attack. The one that everyone always says. Attack beats grab, grab beats shield, shield beats attack. So if you want to force your opponent to let you grab them, you have to be able to condition them to do something that will make it, or that'll force them to lose to grab. So for example, Zoning with tethers or with PK Fire would create that scenario where your opponent would run up to you with a grab. So let's say your basic tool is Yomi level 0, your zoning tools. If I try to run up to you, and you use that, then it's going to be very hard for me to break through. And at the same time, you still get some pretty decent reward, because if you approach with a tether, then you can potentially get a grab out of that. So, moving forward from that, my counterplay would be running up and shielding, which is exactly what you want. And then right there, you get your level 2 option, which is to grab. Level 3 would probably be me approaching from the air, trying to avoid that, or me approaching with an air dodge, or me trying to roll in, and that would lose to your zoning tools. If you space me out, I cannot approach in that way. You force me to approach with my shield, and then you're able to get the grabs that you want. That would be one way for you to treat that relationship. And the same aspect goes for any strong tool that someone has. If you have a way to counterplay the tool, then they'll find a way to counterplay that, and usually the first tool will work on the counterplay for the second tool. It's a very common relationship in every fighting game. Okay, so let's see. I want to touch on the other aspects that you were talking about. No, that you wanted to focus on. So, adapt. We covered a little bit of adapting. So it's still something you need to work on, because you need to practice playing in different playstyles besides the one you're most used to. That is tricky. Mm-hmm. It's tricky completely revolutionizing your playstyle, especially trying to find one that's fluid. You want to be able to recognize when your opponent's playing a certain way and immediately be able to switch to the playstyle that covers it. That way you can adapt on a dime and just beat out every single opponent regardless of what character they're playing, which way they play, all that good stuff. If you only play in one way, then you're always going to lose to some opponents, or you're always going to struggle against some opponents. Maybe you won't always lose. And there's going to be some opponents that'll usually struggle against you, and there's going to be opponents that are going to be even. But if you're able to completely adjust yourself and be fluid towards the playstyle that best suits the situation, or towards the play styles, sometimes you have, instead of just picking a tool that will beat their tool, you have to play rock, paper, scissors. You're going to be juggling all these tools, all these different play styles. And that right there is what I believe is one of the most fun aspects of this. When you find someone else who's actively trying to adapt to you, and you're constantly adapting to them instead of staying stuck, that right there makes such an intense mental battle that's just really fun to play. And that's something that you need to work on. So that's adaptation. There's stage control, which we covered near the beginning. There's knowing your limits. We haven't touched on that at all. So what exactly did you mean by this?
Basically, whenever, let's say I'm Mario, if I'm holding shield and they did a nair, like nair on shield, sometimes
like landing nair?
Yeah. Like sometimes I'll try to grab it, but then I just get beat out by
a jab?
Like jab, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that comes mostly in terms of matchup knowledge. There's going to be different characters that have different options that beat out certain situations. So you generally want to know what is safe and what is not. So that often comes in with some understanding of stage control. I mean, not stage control. That comes with some understanding of frame data. So let's take a look at Lucas's frame data real quick. Have you ever looked into it?
Yes, I actually have it pulled up.
Okay,
well,
awesome.
Not yet, but
that'll make this somewhat easier. All right, so you have Lucas's frame data. Your grab comes out on frame 12. That is really slow for a grab. So if your opponent has an option that has a certain amount of shield stun and a certain amount of recovery time, and then has a fast option that can act out of that, then you got a dangerous game going on. So in Mario's case, he can land with that and punish you pretty easily. He can land with a down air, and you can't really grab him for it. He can often just pressure you like that. That right there is the situation where I was talking about. He has a frame advantage on you because he pressured you. He lands behind you. You can't really throw out a grab. You have to act out quickly. And if he hits you, even worse. You know, you have to be able to back off. You have to recognize where you are at a frame disadvantage. That's what it all really comes down to, is frame disadvantage. Now, you can practice your situations where you generally have the ability to push forward, like for example, the landing tether to grab is something you can get on a lot of characters, but maybe not others. Maybe they're able to leap out of the way. Like, often, your tether to grab is a great example of putting your opponent at a frame disadvantage. Because your opponent can generally escape from that. It's not a true combo, right?
No. It's not a true combo.
But it works if your opponent does not immediately act upon it and back off. If they think they can make things happen. Another example of that would be like maybe Marth's jab. He does have some true combos you can get out of it, like jab to forward tilt. But other things, like jab to fair or jab to forward smash, that's created by frame advantage. And recognizing the positions where you are at a frame disadvantage is something that will save your life. Let's say your opponent spaces you out with something like a cross-up back air, or like you're trying to approach him and he back airs you. And then you try to chase him down. And then he immediately turns around and throws out an attack. Like, let's say you block it. And then you try to chase him down. But if you do that, consider the fact that Mario has almost no lag on his back air. So, if he's constantly spacing you out like this, he can very easily act out of it. There's going to be a lot of characters that are able to do that. And that is not a situation you generally want to try to aim for the punish him. You want to use a faster option, or you want to keep using your shield. Or let's say another situation. Diddy Kong fairs your shield. And you try to block the fair, and then you aim to punish it. But if you aim to punish it with a grab, then your grab's going to be way too slow. So let's see what would be faster. Your grab is frame 12 out of shield. Your jump squat is frame 5. Your nair is frame 7. So 5 plus 7 is 12. Your nair out of shield is the same speed as your grab out of shield. Now, let's see if we can find something faster. Your up tilt is frame 4. So shield drop is frame 7. So that would be frame 11 out of shield. So that's one frame faster. Maybe not the fastest option. Jab is frame 2. Down tilt is frame 3. So your jab out of shield would be significantly faster. It would be frame 9. That's probably your fastest out of shield option.
Okay.
Besides rolling and spot dodge and things like that. Or even just jumping out of shield. Your air dodge is frame 3. So you can jump and air dodge on frame 8. You can spot dodge on frame 3. You can roll on frame 4. There's going to be situations where the spot dodge and the roll are your only viable option, or even just staying in shield. Lucas is not a character that has very good out of shield options, so if your shield is being pressured, generally you want to get out of dodge so you can be in a position where you're no longer at a frame disadvantage.
Okay.
That's something you definitely want to keep in mind. Let me see what frame your up B is. It's probably frame 20, yeah. Forget about that. Now, there is one counter example, though. Your up smash out of shield is interesting, because it is invincible on frame 1 to frame 4. So if you're being... No, and your head is intangible from frame 15 to 29. If you're being pressured by a multi-hit option on shield, if you catch him near the end of that multi-hit option with an up smash out of shield, you can actually counterattack. Because if you time the up smash out of shield perfectly, you have full intangibility and are able to completely counterattack them. So let's say Mario jumps towards you on shield. Hold on. You can up smash out a shield right there.
Keep messing it up.
Yeah, let your shield regenerate. You saw how I hit you and you were still able to act?
Yeah.
That right there is a nice counterattack. You generally don't want to be in a position where the... Oh my god, the encoding system. Okay, whatever.
Huh?
I was just getting bodied by lag. Anyways, you generally don't want to be over-reliant on that, but it is a good option to keep in mind when your opponent's pressuring your shield with a multi-hit attack. This is one of the few times where you do have a viable out-of-shield option. You could just completely anti-air them with the up smash. But at the same time, that's a risky option. Because if you miss, you're getting hard punished. But because it's so large, you can use it as a viable get-off-me tool if they're trying to pressure your shield. So it's a bit weird in that dynamic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Besides that, let's see. I mean, you down tilt's frame 3 and you get some pretty decent stuff with that. So even though it's slower than your jab, you can act out of shield with it if someone lands pretty laggy out of shield. That's like a frame 10 out of shield option, which isn't bad. And frame 9 jab, yeah, well, you can make it work. Also, if another aspect of it, perfect shielding. Do you know the mechanics behind the perfect shield?
No.
Okay, so if you block an attack within the first three frames of your shield coming out, you will be able to. No, you get less shield stun, and you gain the ability to buffer an input out of your shield without having to drop shield. So, I want you to do this. I want you to try tapping the shield button, and then tapping, like, press and release the shield button, and then press A. You'll notice the jab does not come out. If you grab, you did it wrong.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, now I want to show you what happens here. I want you to keep flashing your shield like that.
Oops.
Keep doing it. No, are you pressing A?
Oh, no, I'm not pressing it.
Yeah. Keep flashing your shield. Don't jab. Rather, flash your shield with the A button press, like this. Okay, you're not doing it right. Are you flashing it with the A button?
Oops, I grabbed again. Okay, so you want me to flash my shield?
I want you to flash your shield and press the A button before the shield drops. Like, press shield, let go of shield, and then press the A button within 11 frames.
Okay.
Here, try attacking me real quick when I'm doing this. Actually, I have an idea. I'm gonna run towards you, and I want you to jab me when I get close. Just one jab.
Okay.
Whoops, I messed up.
Well,
You see that?
yeah, that came out really fast.
I'm gonna do it with an up tilt now. Try it again. You're doing it a little too late. Oh, I accidentally grabbed. That right there is the magic of perfect shield. If you do you use tilt stick or smash stick?
Smash stick.
Okay. You can do this with smash attacks by pressing the C stick in a direction. So if you perfect shield and press C stick forward. Now if you shield and then press C stick forward after the shield drop. I don't know if it will work like that. Maybe the smash stick is different because it acts as a directional stick as well. I think it only works best with tilt stick.
Yeah, because it's basically just rolling.
Okay. Well, do you have tap jump on or off?
Off.
Okay. Well, you can do this with up tilt at least, which is pretty good. Just hold up, and then do the same thing and press A.
Okay.
I want you to run towards me, and then just quarter circle up A when you're flashing the shield. You did it with a jab.
Whoops.
There you go. So if you're expecting an option, you can use that as a way to counterattack. And there's other ways that you can do it too. Like for example, if you're fast enough, you can press shield, let go of shield, press your attack, and then hold shield again. And what will happen is, if you perfect shield, your attack will come out instantly. If you don't perfect shield, you will keep holding shield. So like, let me run up to you and try it real quick.
Okay.
Whoops. Damn it, hold on. I'm practicing it right now. By the way, thanks a lot for the follows, guys. Sorry I'm not paying attention to the chat too much. I'm trying to give my full attention to Zany here. Damn it. Actually, should I be able to do this? Oh, I see what the problem is. Damn it. I need to practice this. But that is a concept that you can apply. I think I'm getting it now, actually. Can you try it?
Sure.
Damn it. Immediately when I try it. There it is.
There we go.
And if I don't do it, I'll just shield. So if I missed a perfect shield window, then I still stay safe. I can still keep acting out of it. These are more advanced techniques that you can consider practicing if you want to be able to act on someone immediately out of shield. Since Lucas has very limited out of shield options, perfect shield might be the way to go. Since it allows you to act faster out of shield, and it'll give you more opportunities to punish your opponents. Also, not only does it give you the ability to buffer, to drop shield without going through the shield drop animation, but it also gives you less shield stun, which means you can act faster out of shield than you normally could. So practicing perfect shield is definitely something I would recommend.
Okay.
So, let me
Did
see.
you perfect shield?
hard to perfect shield on Wi-Fi. But yeah, that'd be one way for you to practice it. Like, you go into training mode against a CPU that just throws fireballs or something like that, and then just practice perfect shielding on that. Also practice advancing guard, practice walking shield, and just practice perfect shielding through that. There's a series which is Tech of the Week for One Smash. I don't know if you've seen it, where they do.
I've watched it a few times.
They did a lot of videos on this specific technique and different things that you could potentially do. This is called an option select. Essentially, if nothing happens, if you don't perfect shield, you get a normal effect, like either a shield drop or keep holding shield or things like that. And if you actually get the perfect shield, then you get the other buffered option. So yeah, buffers, all that good stuff. There's different things you can practice. Now, we only have 20 minutes left, so I want to talk a little bit about your autopilot issues.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what exactly will happen during a match? That you'll feel that you're in autopilot? You're just not entirely thinking about what you're doing, you're just pressing buttons, trying to move forward?
Yeah. That mostly.
Okay, well, with a lot of the stuff that I told you, trying to keep this in mind will make it so you're no longer an autopilot. But it doesn't just go that far. There's more to it. Let me ask you something. When you play in a tournament, what is generally your goal?
Well,
You
my
said
goal
you want
is
to be
like
the best, so I'm assuming your goal is to win.
yeah, and then I get upset when I don't.
Okay.
But then there was one time.
Trips?
Huh?
Salt trips, maybe?
Yeah, there was one time where I didn't really play to win, but I ended up getting second.
Yeah? As opposed to, what place do you usually get?
About 5th.
Well, there you go.
Sometimes.
Here's the thing about that. When you play to win, you have a goal in mind, a tangible goal, which is something that can be denied. And if you fail to reach your goal, then you fail. No, then you get upset. So let's say we're playing a match, and your goal in mind is to win the match. Already there's a problem there, because you're no longer thinking about the match itself, you're thinking about the result. Or if your goal is to win the tournament and not just the match, then you have another goal in mind that has absolutely nothing to do with the match itself, so your mind is already elsewhere. That's step one. So, let's say you get in a situation where I grab you, I get an advantage on you. Right there, you take some damage, you get caught in a combo, you're struggling to get out, and you're constantly pressured, your options are covered, and then bad things happen, whatever. Like, you're in this situation, that's a lot of pressure on you. The more damage you take, the closer you are to losing your stock, the farther away you are from your goal. So, you end up getting a little upset. Maybe it was a mistake you made that caused that to happen, so you start getting a little tilted. The more tilted you get, the more mistakes you make. The more mistakes you make, the more tilted you get. It's an endless spiral of just pure salt. And by the time you end the match and end up losing, you just feel so much worse. You feel devastated. Maybe you go into the next match fully tilted, or you go into the next game fully tilted, and you end up playing worse as a result. And the more tilted you get, the more mistakes you make. Now, let's flip the situation on its head. Let's say you get the advantage on me, and you maybe even get close and you end up taking a stock, or your opponent has D's or something like that. Now, let's say I'm a top player in your region. You start thinking, oh my god, I could actually beat him. Like, hey, we're getting close. and then you start going ham. You start going super ham because you see the end in sight. However, the fact that you're playing ham makes you play risky, and playing risky means you're prone to making mistakes, or at least higher damaging mistakes, like riskier plays, higher risk, lower reward. And if you end up making too many of those, you could end up throwing the match. And, well, throwing the match, generally not something you want to do. And that is something that's going to tilt you super hard. It's like, I had that and I threw it away. And then you end up getting tilted. And then you make mistakes and you get tilted. You're back in the endless spiral. That's already a bad time. So, you want to avoid that. So, playing to win, maybe not the best option. You want your goal to be to keep your mind in the match. Now, there's people that have the opposite problem. They play to not lose. And that right there is the same thing, but instead of playing too risky, they play too patient. They play with a defeatist attitude, not being confident enough to take the advantages that are given to them, which means it's easier to take advantage of them, and they end up missing opportunities that could have been presented to them. And they get the same tilted, because the closer they get to losing, the farther away they get from their goal. So, what I advise people is to do one of two things. You want to either play to learn, and the mindset, or you want to play well. If you play to learn, the mindset you have is one of growth. You are watching your opponent. You're watching yourself. You're experimenting. You're treating your mistakes as stepping stones, and you're constantly seeing what your opponent is doing and playing to counteract it. You're aware. You're no longer on autopilot. You are playing the game as best you possibly can. But at the same time, you're trying things out. If something's not working, you will experiment with it and give it a good shot. Like, you will try finding other ways around. Maybe someone's creating an impenetrable wall and you're finding ways to break around it. Now, the problem with this playstyle is that if you play too much to learn, then there's a possibility that you might experiment with something that you're not ready, that is not ready yet. And you end up playing worse at a tournament as a result. Like, let's say you're practicing a new technique with Lucas, or you're practicing your footstool setup, right? And then you grab someone and try to do the footstool setup in tournament, and you end up messing it up. Right there, you could have gotten so much more damage with something that was more secure, but because you went for the footstool setup, you lost an opportunity. And since the end result is you want to win the tournament, whether it's your goal or not, that puts you a little farther from the goal. It's like, it's not ideal. It's not the ideal situation. But at the same time, it's an important step to growth. So in the end, maybe you won't do as well in tournaments as you want to, but you'll still end up getting better in the long run, which is a good place to be. So sometimes you might want to sacrifice your tournament results for the sake of growth. But other times, when you really want the tournament, when you don't want to give up the chance to win, when you feel you are ready for everything that goes your way, once you reach that point where you feel you are ready, you've learned all you need to learn, then you can play to play well instead, which is going through your entire kit of things that you've mastered and focusing on those things. Essentially, you as a player have defined your own moveset, not your character's, and you are drawing from that moveset to play the game. You're watching your opponents, you are adapting to what they're doing, and you are growing in that sense as well, but you're not relying on experimentation to do so. The disadvantage of this is that if your opponent's playing it a way that you don't know how to deal with, you're going to end up losing, most likely, because you're not going to be able to come back from that seemingly impenetrable wall. Someone who's playing to grow might be better at doing so. So you can switch your playstyle in the middle of the tournament as well. If you feel like you're struggling with something that you don't know how to deal with, then you could switch your focus from playing to play well to playing to grow, and you could use that to just get past that wall. You know what I mean? So if you focus on those things, then you're going to be generally playing a little bit better. Now, keeping that going into not playing on autopilot, you want to be able to recognize. You want to be able to recognize when you are on autopilot. It's going to be a little hard sometimes, but when you notice that you're constantly losing to a situation, or that you're constantly taking too much damage, or maybe you realize you lost stock, all that stuff, you want to just take a step back. Maybe in the beginning of the match, you thought the way that I told you to think. Maybe you think, okay, let me watch his playstyle, let me play to adapt, and let me try to beat him out here. And then you give it a shot, you find out his playstyle, and you start using it against him. And then from there, you do well, but then eventually he starts coming back. And right there, when he starts coming back, you need to, if you fell into autopilot playing your playstyle, you need to rethink, take a step back, and be like, okay, what is happening here? What am I doing wrong? Did he change the way he's playing? And then once he does that, you need to think again about what's going on in the match, what playstyle he's playing, and then adapt again. You can't stay rooted in one playstyle. And in doing so, it would end up working out a lot better. Like, you'll be able to adapt again on a dime. If you're able to stay focused throughout the entire match, it's even better, because you're going to be able to juggle that game of rock, paper, scissors. But otherwise, not so much. Like, you can still win, even if you're on autopilot, so long as your autopilot is making that good stuff. Now, there is another philosophy that kind of goes into this, which is, I don't know if you've heard, if you watched Soul's videos at all, or if you've maybe heard this philosophy somewhere else. But there are 4 stages of competence that are often used as a way of measuring your place as a player. So let's go ahead and back out from this. So there's 4 stages, and they go like this. There is unconscious incompetence as the first stage. You are bad, you don't even know you're bad. This is like the typical kid on For Glory who's pressing buttons and having a good time. Casual players tend to be unconscious incompetence. Then there's the next level up, which is unconscious competence. No. The next level up is conscious incompetence. You are bad. You're still bad, and you know you're bad. So you're trying to take the steps that'll stop you from being bad. You are trying to grow as a player. You're trying to take the opportunities. You're trying to understand the game a little better. Or maybe you're trying to improve one step at a time. Then there's the next step up from that, which is conscious competence. When you are focused on the game, you are playing well. You know what your mistakes are, but your autopilot still has not adapted to it. So if you fall into autopilot, you're still going to get bodied. But you're still doing a lot better with that. Once you're focused on the game.
You're cutting out for me.
I'm cutting out? Okay, that's unfortunate. Is it better now?
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, it looks like we're having technical difficulties. Uh-oh. Yes, testing. Can you hear me? Okay. So we ended up cutting out there. Fortunately, I don't know what happened there. Okay, so he has the stream on, so he can hear me regardless. All right, so moving on from let me start the explanation over, since I don't know exactly what he didn't hear. So there's the 4 stages of competence. There's unconscious incompetence, which is being able to notice like you're bad, you don't even know you're bad. You're a casual player, maybe you're playing the game, having a good time pressing buttons, but you don't care whether or not you are bad. So moving on from there is where most beginning competitive players are, which is conscious incompetence. Conscious incompetence, which is you're bad, but you know you're bad. So now you're trying to take the steps to fix that. You are growing as a player. You are taking your first steps, trying to learn the game, trying to learn fundamentals, all the good stuff. Maybe you're learning by trial and error, but you're still learning. Then there's conscious competence, which is where you're getting a lot better. You're good, but only when you stay focused on your game. Your autopilot is still not at the place you want it to be. Like, it's still holding you back. When you play badly, you're on autopilot, which is probably where you are, Zany. If you stay focused on the game, you can play a little bit better, but when you fall into autopilot, you get bodied. Honestly, you might be somewhere between the conscious incompetence and conscious competence. Somewhere in there. And then there's the next level above that, which is unconscious competence, where you understand the game so well and so deeply that even your autopilot is godlike. Even when you fall into autopilot, you're still playing well. And once you reach that level, that's when you start making your claim on the world. That's when you start being good at the video games. Before that, you make upsets. Here, you're a lot more consistent. Because even if you fall into autopilot, you're still playing well. You're still doing that work. So, the more you're able to learn about the game, the less that autopilot is going to matter. But it still matters. You still want to be on your best, because if you are not adapting, then your opponent will not be able to will be able to counter adapt to you, will be able to beat you up. So bad times. Very bad times. Anyways, we are just about out of time on the lesson. Is there anything else you want to cover before we end up shutting down the lesson? Because I think we covered most of the bases, but I'm not sure if there's any last questions you want to ask with the 17 minutes. No, with the 3 minutes, 2 minutes now that we have left in the lesson. We covered everything pretty well, I think. Zone Falcon wanted to say his take on edge guarding for Lucas. He says he needs to trump back air, and if they get up or jump down smash covers both, and if he rolls, he could run an up smash. The opponent guesses wrong, they could die at 80 no matter what if Lucas guesses right. I believe because up smash kills at 80, down smash at ledge, and trump back air kills at 40. Yeah, I mean, whatever you take on there. Option coverage is something else that you need to keep in mind, but that comes more into your specifics as a character. Fundamentals do fall into that a little bit, but I think for now you're in a pretty good spot. Let me see. Whenever I play this Bowser, he seems to know how to cover all ledge options. He's so good at doing that. Is that possible to do with Lucas? Yes. Yes, it is. Essentially, it's not so much that he's covering all the ledge options. It's that he's positioned himself in a place where he can react to whatever you're doing. So, going back to any miscellaneous stage, say, Not going in game for this. Just going to be demonstrating here. Essentially, if I am on ledge and I try to get back onto the stage.
I can hear you now.
Oh, awesome. There we go. Perfect. All right, let's just get in game then. Technical difficulties over. Okay, so this goes a little bit into ledge coverage and goes into what I was talking about your options being limited on the ledge. So, let's say I am on ledge and you are not. If you are far away, then I am at the edge of your threat zone, which means I can, you know, depending on how you position yourself, you can react to whatever I do from the ledge. So, if I neutral get up, you can react to that and potentially cover it, but maybe you're a little too far to punish it straight out. If I jump, you can step backwards and cover that, or you can throw out a lingering hitbox on reaction. You can throw out maybe an up air or an air or whatever. If I drop down, you can take a step back and cover that as well. You can stay out of the range of this red zone and just aim to pivot grab or do whatever it is you want to do. And if I roll, then you should be able to react to that pretty easily from that position. There's a position that a lot of people tend to use when covering the ledge, which is going to be right around... It's one of two places. Stop hitting for a second. Okay, so let's say my roll distance is here. You would want to position yourself like right here, facing away from the stage. Or, you were like, oh, yeah, just stay there for a second. Because essentially from this position, if I roll, I'm right in front of you. If I do anything else, you can cover that space by turning around or by covering something in the air. You generally, lingering options are the best at covering multiple options at once. So things like your nair is going to be a really good tool, because if I neutral get up and you're nairing, then you're going to hit me and potentially start something. Up smash is more of a hard read. I wouldn't recommend it straight out. But if I roll, then you can very easily react to that and cover that, so long as you don't overcommit to what you do. If I jump, you can catch my landing. Like, I have ways to mix it up, but in general, it's a stronger position for you than it is for me. If I stay on ledge, you can just wait. You don't, unless I regrab. Once I regrab, considering you're facing away, you can very easily jump in back air and spike. Make it a short hop, like that. If you can connect with that and get the spike, then you can kill someone pretty easily with that. But keep in mind, once you make a decision, that is your commitment. And if you overcommit to the edge guard, then your opponent's going to be able to make it back. Like, for example, if you try to aim for a trump from too far away, and your opponent reacts to it, then it might be able to roll out of the way. Hold on a second. Give me just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, we're good. But yeah, it all comes down to being able to react and cover multiple edge options at once. And of course, it comes down to you as a character being able to recognize what ledge options are covered and what works in certain situations better than others. Like down air, no, that back air works really well for covering if you stay on ledge or if you drop down and try jumping without an air dodge. Because either way, you're going to smack me. But at the same time, if you get too close, then your opponent can hit you with a rising aerial and potentially get combo follows from that. But yeah, that would be something for you to investigate on your own and to talk to the Lucas Discord about for the most part. But the aspect of staying back far away enough so that you can react to the ledge options so you can back up on your own terms, that right there is what I can give you. And that optimal coverage spot, which is standing here and facing away. The other spot is against characters with more reach from the ledge, which is instead of trying to stand right there, you want to stand right here, facing towards the stage. so that if your opponent rolls, they end up in front of you. This would be more effective against characters like Sheik, Pikachu, Fox, that can like do a quick option to get back on stage, or that can threaten you from a longer reach. Diddy Kong as well. But just be wary of overcommitments. Keep in mind that you don't always have to react to something. If your opponent does a neutral get up, like let's put it this way. There's a concept of risk reward that I kind of glazed over. I didn't really get to talk about it too much, but generally you want to go for options that are low risk, high reward. You want to balance out that risk versus reward. So let's say you're covering the ledge, and your opponent does something like a damn, I didn't know that worked. Say your opponent does like a neutral get up here. You don't have to cover the neutral get up. What you have to do is you have to cover what comes after the neutral get up, because the neutral get up is a 1 frame window to cover before he can bring up his shield. And besides that, think about it. The risk of trying to cover neutral get up is you give up your advantage. The reward is you catch him and continue your advantage. Meanwhile, if he does neutral get up and you don't cover it, you retain your advantage. He's still on the ledge, he still can't do anything. It's just now he's on stage, so his advantage is only slightly diminished. And right here, you have more opportunities to try to pressure him on ledge. You still retain your control of the stage, you still have everything that you need. So you don't have to absolutely go out of your way to do it, to get in there, you know?
Okay.
And that goes into a lot of things in Smash. It's just, if, like, for example, let's say you got your opponent off stage, and you want to edgeguard them. You don't have to go off stage to edgeguard them. Because think about if Mario tries to get back on stage, he's got his up B. If you get caught by the up B when trying to edgeguard me, then you die. So the reward is you knock me further off stage and potentially get a stock, and the risk is you die. That's not a worthy trade. But if you're stock up, you might want to try to go for it if you feel that risk is worth taking. Even still, I wouldn't go for it. I'd rather go for other trades. Like, if you know you can edgeguard them without the chance of death, then by all means. But besides that, think about what you're doing. Because the alternative is you could stay on stage and aim to cover ledge instead of going off stage to edgeguard, and you'd be able to retain your advantage even if you fail. Unless your opponent catches you out from commitment, in which case that's another thing. Essentially, you're giving up some advantage instead of all of it. The worst thing that you could possibly do in this sort of situation is throw away your advantage and fall into disadvantage. If you lose your advantage and go into neutral, you're fine. You can get the advantage back. But if you lose your advantage and go into disadvantage, you just gave your opponent an advantage, and now you're not fine. The longer you're in advantage, the more percent you're giving your opponent. The longer you're disadvantaged, the more percent you're taking. And of course, the higher risk of dying. So that's generally what you want to avoid. Anyways, that's all the time we have. You said you were potentially going to be interested in a follow-up lesson, but for now, what I want you to do is I want you to focus on what you learned here and try to apply it as best you can. And we'll meet up maybe in 2 weeks, maybe longer, and we'll try to build up on what you had already, on what you got from there, and maybe new challenges that have been presented. Maybe you're not very good at playing in a certain play style and you want to elaborate a little bit more on that. But for now, let's go ahead and call this off. Thanks a lot for the donation, man. Means a lot. Hope the lesson.
Thank you for the lesson.
No problem, man. Take care of yourself. Oh, also,
You too.
well, I mean, tune in for the stream a little afterwards. I wanna announce something, and I think I wanna ask your opinion on this in particular.
Okay.
All right. So. Okay, so yeah, that lesson was done in regards to a $20 donation, no, a $40 donation that he left, which for some reason isn't showing up because he doesn't have the No, I don't have the alert thing set up properly anymore. I need to set up a new one, I think. But that was good. Definitely something I needed. Anyways, let's go ahead and keep on going with the stream for now.